Okay, scholars, today we are going to be doing our listen and respond for the girl who wouldn't brush her hair. So this is the book. Go ahead and write your name on your paper, and if you are green or purple, you're either doing this on the 2nd or the 3rd. So you will write today the date, the 2nd or the 3rd. Write your name. Then you're going to write the title, The Girl Who Wouldn't Brush Her Hair. And if you'll notice, the first letter of each word is capitalized because this is a title and we always capitalize our titles. So let's go ahead and get started. As college-ready readers, we always use college-ready sentences. We always support our ideas with evidence from the text. Preview. Readers always collect clues before they get started reading. Look at the front and back covers of the book before you start reading or listening to the story and fill in the chart below. What do you think this book is going to be about? Why do you think this? I think this book will be about blah, blah, blah. I think this because blah, blah, blah. Another thing I think this book might be about is blah, 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 blah. I think this because blah, blah, blah. So let's go ahead and fill this part in. Here is the cover. I see a girl and I see a bunch of mice in her hair, and her hair's kind of crazy. And then here's the back. It says, it wasn't long before word got around the mouse world that there was a very nice home atop a girl's head. Oh my goodness. So I think this book will be about a girl who will not brush her hair. I think this because the title, and I see messy hair on the cover. So remember, the answer for these two, it can only be something like, I see it on the cover, I read it on the back, because we haven't read this story yet, okay? Also, I want to remind you that you need to fill this second one in, and it needs to be different from the idea that I had right here. Also, if you come up with your own ideas, that's fine. However, they need to be different. We're not going to just write the same thing twice. That would be kind of pointless. Seems like a waste of your time, so I don't think you should be doing that. You need to come up with two different things. The other hand, these two can be the same because we only have so much information right now because we haven't read the story, right? So you can have these two answers and it can be the same, like I see it on the cover, I read it on the back, or I know this about not brushing my hair, I know what happens. So those two can be the same, but these two ideas need to be different. Okay, now we're gonna go ahead and get started reading, and we're gonna be paying attention to see who the characters are so that we can fill in our next chart. Characters and setting. Readers know that understanding the characters and setting of a story helps them to better understand what's going on in the story. List the characters from the story here, and then what do you know about them? At least two for each character. And then we also want to know, what is the setting? Please remember, the setting is always a place. Like, you can go to the setting. So the setting is where story happens. So it's somewhere you can go. So make sure that what you write here is a place that you can go and visit, or like, even if it's not a real place, you could go there if it was a real place. So if you're saying like something like the girl did blah, blah, blah in this blank, you need to check and see what you're doing, because that's not a setting. What the girl did is not a place that you can go. Okay, so make sure that you're paying attention for that. Let's go ahead and see what happens. There once was a girl who wouldn't brush her hair. Her hair was wonderful, bare, brown, and wavy. The girl also had a doll that looked just like her, except the doll had no hair and was only a baby. The doll's name was Baby. After the girl's bath every evening, she'd pile a turban upon her head and pretend she was queen. At bedtime, she would unravel the turban and let her hair fall down in a tangled heap. No brushing. It's just my way, she explained to the grown-ups. And then she'd lie down beside Baby and begin to dream. This went on for a great many evenings, the hair washing, the turban, the not brushing, the dreams. It was wonderful, really, until one night the girl unwound the turban And what was that? Oh dear, a little mouse had taken up residence in the particularly tangled place in her hair. Now we all know in books people scream when they see a mouse and jump on a chair, but the girl was in bed. There was no chair nearby, and besides, she'd read enough fairy tales to remember that mice always turned out to be your helpers. So she simply said, "Hello up there, mouse," and decided to let it be. All right, so I'm going to pause here, and for sure we know of one character, right? We know of the girl. What are some traits the girl has? Like, she doesn't want to brush her hair. So what would we say about somebody who doesn't want to brush their hair? Kind of lazy, I think. But she also was very friendly to the mice. So we could say that she's friendly. So those are two characteristics. Are these like characteristics that are inner or outer? So these are inner because you can't see these by looking at someone. You can only tell like when they do something or they don't do something, right? So these are both inner traits. An outer trait would be that she has long brown hair. So that's an outer trait because you can look at her and see that she has long brown hair. All right, so as we read, I want you coming up with your other characters. As we go through, I'm not going to write them down yet, so you'll have to come back to this part and add them in, okay? All right, so let's keep going with our story. "It's just my way," she said to the grown-ups when they came to kiss her goodnight and saw the mouse making a cozy bed on top of her head. The next morning, the girl awoke to find that another mouse had moved in. A bigger one carrying a suitcase full of fairy tale books. And there by the foot of the bed, a couple of tiny mice with rucksacks were gazing longingly in her hair's very direction. That day, the girl, the doll, and all the mice went to school. It wasn't long before word got around the mouse world that there was a very nice home atop a girl's head, and more mice joined them. Uh-oh. Whoopsie. All right, the school children marveled at this new development. They too stopped brushing their hair in hope of starting their own little mouse menageries. How wonderful, they thought, like having your own petting zoo on top of your head. But the girl's mother refused to pack the mice lunch or make them supper, so the girl had no choice but to share hers with them. Soon the girl who wouldn't brush her hair found herself very hungry. The girl also began to feel worried. Yes, she loved her companions. After all, they told funny knock-knock jokes and were very sweet to Baby, but they did not like the bath. "We can't swim," they chorused, clinging to knotted strands. Don't do it, we'll drown." "That's silly," the girl said. "All mice can swim. We learned that in our unit on rodents." "We'll overlook your name-calling," the Mouse King announced. He was the biggest one, who had arrived early on with the fairy tale books in the suitcase. "But there will be no baths. It's just our way." They had learned this last part from listening to the girl. All right, let's pause here. We're going to go ahead and fill in the setting. So she's a little girl, and it seems like the setting of this story is it's like the house that she lives in and her school. So it's both of those places. So then now you need to come up with, how does the setting match what's happening with the characters? So the setting matches what is happening with the characters because blank. So you're thinking to me, why did this author choose to make this story happen in a house and at school? Think about, where do little girls and boys take baths or where do they go to bed? They do those things at their house, right? And then where do they go during the day? They go to school, and that's what they do. That's what kids do. So think for yourself, would this story make sense if they put it in a different setting, like a different place? Would it make sense if they were at the zoo? Would it make sense if they were on the moon? Would it make sense if they were at the beach? Think to yourself, why did the author pick to have the setting be at her house and at her school? And then you're going to answer this question. Then we're ready to make a prediction. So remember, a prediction is when readers guess what might happen next in the story. You're basing this guess off of what's already happened in the story and off of your own life, what you know about things. So what do you think might happen next, and why do you think this? Something I think might happen next is blah, blah, blah. I think this because I write it in the story. I know what happens if you don't take a bath. I know what happens if a mouse is in my hair. Like that, you're coming up with this based off of your own knowledge and based off of things that have happened in the story. Then you have this one down here. Another thing I think might happen next is blah, blah, blah. I think this because blah, blah, blah. So these two cannot be the same. So I'm going to give you an answer for an example, and you can copy it if you would like. And then you need to come up with a different one on your own. So something I think might happen next is the girl wants to take a bath. Even though the mouse doesn't want her to. So I think she wants to go ahead and take a bath. And I think this because I have been dirty before, right? Like I have needed a bath. And I know what it feels like to not take a bath. So I want to take a bath. So I know she may feel that way too, right? Especially if I had a mouse in my hair. Because I know that mice are kind of cute, but they also aren't the cleanest of animals, right? I'm sure they have to go to the bathroom at some point, and I don't know that I would want them pooping and peeing in my hair. I mean, to each their own, but I definitely would want to wash that out. So I know how she feels. Boom. Okay, so you can copy this if you would like, and then you're going to come up with your own idea for the other thing that you think might happen next. Something different. Okay? Let's keep going and see what happens next. Oh, goodness. Knock, knock. Who's there? Oh, my goodness. Look, they got cheese in her hair. Oh, my word. What a mess. What a mess. Much to the mice's relief, the girl agreed, for though she was becoming quite dirty, she had grown fond of their company. They had set up such a marvelous home for themselves, a palace, really, atop her head. It had secret passageways and a cheese cellar and a tiny circular moat. So we're going to pause right here, and we're going to go ahead and make our visualization for this part. So on number 5, it says visualize. Readers always think about how this story might look in their heads. Readers make a mind movie about what they're reading to see the story in their head. So what do you think this part of the story might look like? Like if you could see it with your own eyes, what would you see? I'm imagining the part in the story where blank is happening. I'm imagining it looks like blank. 3 things to describe this are blank, blank, blank. I think this part looks like this because blank. So I'm going to fill in this first part of number 1, and you're going to copy. You're going to copy it down, and then you're going to come up with the bottom part and this part by yourself. So make sure you get what I write right here, because if you do not have what I write on this part, the rest of the answer is going to be wrong. So make sure that you're paying close attention. So I'm imagining the part in the story where the girl describes the mice house in her hair. All right, so you're going to copy this down. If you need to, pause, rewind, fast forward, whatever you need to do to get this down. I'm going to go ahead and spell it out for you. The T-H-E, girl, G-I-R-L, describes, D-E-S-C-R-I-B-E-S, the T-H-E, mice, M-I-C-E, house, H-O-U-S-E, N-I-N, her, H-E-R, hair, H-A-I-R. So she's describing the mouse house in her hair. So it says, I'm imagining the part in the story where the girl describes the mice house in her hair is happening. I'm imagining it looks like. So this is where you'll tell me one word to describe what you would think this would look like. This is where you can tell me funny, cool, neat, gross, amazing, whatever you want to say that you think it looks like. That's where you tell me that one word. Down here is where you're going to tell me what you see, specific things that you see. So 3 things to describe this are, so I'm going to say stinky cheese sticking out of her curls. So that tells me that this cheese is stinky, so it's got like a certain look to it. You know how stinky cheese gets kind of mushy. It's sticking out of her curls. That tells me it's in her hair because that's where curls are, right? So that's something that you can see with your eyes if you were looking at her. What else might you see at a mouse house in someone's hair? Would you see a mouse? Would you see, they said that one mouse brought books. They said the other mouse brought like a rucksack, which is kind of like a backpack. What are some things you would see? And then you're going to come up with those two. Then you're going to tell me, why do you think it looks like this? I think it looks like this because I know what cheese looks like. I think it looks like this because I know what hair looks like. I think it looks like this because the story said blah, blah, blah. You're coming up with why did you pick to describe it the way you did? What made you have that mental image in your brain? Okay? All right, let's go ahead and finish up this story. But the not bathing turned out to be less pleasing than the not brushing had been. The girl was starting to, how shall we put this? She was starting to smell. And so, of course, no one wanted to be near her. Even Baby tried to keep her distance. Now it was as if the mice were in charge of the girl rather than the other way around. So there's Baby like hanging back. She's like, oh, you stink. And there's the girl with all the mice in her hair. Stinky. The girl began to sleep less well. She was afraid, for one thing, of smooshing the mice if she rolled over, and for another, the mice were rather nocturnal, as it turned out. Remember, nocturnal means they stay awake at night, and they sleep during the day. They chattered all night, keeping up Baby, telling her complicated knock-knock jokes into the wee hours until the sun rose, and the girl, bleary-eyed, climbed out of bed. Each morning, after carefully brushing her teeth and dressing, it was hard to pull a sweater over a head full of protesting mice. She tidied up her mouse palace head as best she could and dragged herself, Baby, and all of the mice to school. Then one terrible day, teacher said, "I'm so sorry, but you can no longer bring Baby. Each child may have only one friend for nap time, and it appears that by now you have 100 mice in your hair. The rules are quite broken enough." The girl slumped her shoulders and hung her heavy head as Baby and all of the mice stared at her in silence. Oh, poor mice. Dear hairless Baby had been the girl's best friend since she herself had been hairless and a baby. The girl needed Baby with her at school. That was that. It's just my way, she wept. And so, that very night, the girl reluctantly bid the mice farewell. She had a calm talk with them first, explaining about the troubles with the not washing, the not taking hairless Baby to school, and the general, well, insomnia, really. And like all good mice, they understood. Carefully, they picked their things and dismantled the palace. Single file, they took their leave, singing a mournful song. "Oh, girl who would not brush her hair, thank you for letting us live in there. We're on our way, our work is done. We'll find a new head to live upon." The mice were more clever with knock-knock jokes than with songs, as it turned out. And truth be told, they weren't very good at knock-knock jokes. When the mice had all gone, the girl took a long, soapy bath with Baby perched on the edge of the tub. After that, she dressed herself and the doll in matching nightgowns with pictures of happy mice printed upon them. Sitting up in bed, she contentedly ran a brush through her shining mane. Then she kissed Baby, leaned back, closed her eyes, and began to dream. In the morning, the other school children gathered around the girl. They marveled at her braids and the ingenious way she had tied a ribbon around Baby's hairless head. "It's just my way," the girl smiled. Meanwhile, under the monkey bars, another girl who lived next door to the girl who wouldn't brush her hair was deep in argument with a couple of mice dangling from the ends of her wild pigtails. Silly mice, that's just their way. The end. All right, so now, scholars, we are going to be working on the last part of our listen and respond. We need to summarize what we've just read. So readers, think about the most important parts of a book. In your own words, give me a summary of the story you just listened to. The story, blank. So this part says title of the story. That tells me that I write the title right here. So the girl who wouldn't brush her hair. Talks about, characters. That tells me I need to write the characters here. The girl, baby, and the mice. In the beginning of the story, the girl doesn't want to brush her hair. All right, so in the beginning of the story, she doesn't want to brush her hair. In the middle of the story, what happens? Is there a problem? What's going on? What do they do to resolve the problem? At the end of the story, what happens at the end of the story? Does she brush her hair? Does she not brush her hair? Does she solve her problem? So you're filling in those two blanks. Once you finish that, you're going on to number 7. There seems to be a lot of confusion about this, and I'm confused because I only get like one question a day, if that, about how to do this. And yet a lot of us are leaving this blank or skipping it altogether, and that's not okay. So this is one of the questions. You have to do this one. It's not a choice. What you're going to do is open up Google Classroom for your group color. At the very first, open at the page, right where all the posts usually pop up, there's a blank part, and it's got like a little symbol next to it, and then it says share something with your class. You click that, and then you'll be able to type in there. So once you do that, then you choose one of these options. You don't have to do both. You're just picking one, or you're picking the other. If you choose making connections, you'll do readers think about ways a book is similar to their own lives. You'll title the post Making Connections to the Girl Who Wouldn't Brush Her Hair. Then you're going to write about a time that you felt similar to something that happened in this story. I don't know, maybe you don't want to brush your hair. Maybe you don't like to take a bath like the mice don't like to take a bath. You need to connect what happens, your feelings, to what happens in the book. So you'll need to say, blah, blah, blah happened in the book, and that's just like me. I don't like to, or I do like to, blah, blah, blah. You need to connect both of those things together. If you don't want to do this one, you can do story continued. If you choose story continued, you're going to think about what might happen next if the book were to keep going. You would title the post, The Girl Who Wouldn't Brush Her Hair Continued, and then you write about what might happen next in the story. Make sure that you're coming up with something new, and you're not just saying something that's already happened in the story. So at the end of the story, she had long braids, and she had like put a ribbon in baby's hair, and then that other girl with the pigtails was talking to the mice. What do you think might happen next? Where would those mice, would they go to the girl with the pigtails? Would they try to come back? What do you think would happen next? You get to make it up. So you pick one or the other. You do not have to do both. If you have a question about how to post it, please raise your hand and we can help you. Once you finish this, please turn it in, make sure your name is on it, and then you can work on any other work that you're missing for the week. And once you've done that, you can switch to IXL, Lexia, or you can read your book.